Ladies and gentlemen, are you considering purchasing an RTX 40 graphics card? And this may actually have interesting ramifications for AMD's RDNA 3 lineup as well. Courtesy of a couple of articles that have been floating around the internet, these reports essentially state that Nvidia may be implementing price cuts to certain RTX 40 cards, which naturally would be, well, pretty great for us. Let's start things out with a DigiTimes report. This is actually from last week. There are two reasons that Nvidia, at least according to this report anyway, are not increasing the supply of RTX 40 cards. The main one is actually concerning the inventory of RTX 30 cards. Basically speaking, there are still a crap ton of RTX 30 cards, both at retailers and basically for AIBs to ship. I'm not going to go too deep into this because it's pretty damn obvious what the ramifications of this are, but basically, if you have a crap ton of RTX 3070s or whatever, and you're like, you know what, we need to sell them, obviously at the end of the day you'd rather make some money than none, even if you have to sell them at steep discounts because, well, it's better to at least recoup some of those costs. I'm vastly simplifying the supply chain here, but you guys get the idea, it's not that complicated of a situation. Moving on, however, there is another reason, and that's basically that the PC market itself has slowed down. This is certainly not just the PC market. I mean, just gaming as a whole has been a little weird recently, and just, well, the world itself. Again, you guys know what I mean, so I don't really need to go too deep into this, but people are just being more careful with their pennies as things like rent, food, and just about everything else under the sun becomes more expensive. So naturally, someone thinking, well, I could pick up, this whatever card, and it's going to give me slightly shinier, reflections, slightly higher frame rates, and slightly higher resolution. Obviously, again, I'm slightly exaggerating, but you get the idea. It's just not so much of a priority for people. But there is some good news on the horizon, and this is courtesy of Igor's Lab, and this report comes to us today, actually. And that is basically Nvidia are considering a rebate of up to $50 for AIBs on RTX 4070 cards. Now, if you missed it, the MSRP for the 4070 is $599 US. Performance for this card, well, now there are reviews out, it pretty much backed up my own leaks. It's roughly between the 3080 and 3080 Ti, typically a little closer to the Ti, but certainly doesn't beat it in all games. It's going to depend, of course, on resolution, the game engine, and a plethora of other things. But this is an interesting time because Nvidia are considering this being implemented in just a few weeks. The problem is, of course, that the 4060 Ti is waiting on the wings to be launched. Now, this means, according to Igor's Lab, and I can't independently verify this, at least right now, I may speak to some sources, but this has just popped up, that they are a little uncertain whether to do this because obviously that's going to affect the 4060 Ti sales. Now, I've heard that the 4060 Ti was being aimed at $449, so that's $150 US difference between the 60 Ti and the 4070. So what does this mean? Well, it could mean that the 4060 Ti ends up being cheaper than my report, which would be brilliant. I mean, I did state in that video that, honestly, prices were up in the air because Nvidia are just kind of uncertain what to do. And this, of course, seems to be backed up by this Igor's Lab as well as DigiTimes report. It's also possible that AIBs may just decide, at least according to Igor's Lab, to wait for a bit and implementing these price cuts. It's going to be very interesting, to be honest, because also we have N32 and other cards from AMD. Now, at the moment, we have, the 7000 series with the highest end SKUs, the 7900 XT and XTX, and AMD have already somewhat implemented some price cuts through retailers. You can see the price of the cards actually well under the MSRP launch price, and it's not exactly been that long ago that the cards launched. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens from AMD going forward with N32. I've actually been doing a little bit more digging from my sources. I'm going to release a 7800 update video probably tomorrow, maybe the day after. I just want to get a little bit more information. It was initially going to be today, but I've been working on a couple of projects, and again, I just want to try to clarify a few things from some sources because things just seem so strange at the moment in the market. It's going to be very interesting, though, to see what the marketing strategy is for these cards from AMD and Nvidia, because quite frankly, the used market is looking very tempting. And you know what, guys? Like, you can get some really good deals on, okay, admittedly they don't have things like ray tracing, but at least in the UK, because I was doing a little bit of just kind of Googling just for fun, and you can get something like, I think it was the RX 580 for like 130, 140 pounds without really trying. In fact, some retailers are even selling it cheaper than that, and that's certainly not the best deal. There are other cards which are very compelling, particularly if you go used. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens actually with PC strategy from buyers going forward. At the end of the day, it's like I said it's like I said in the last video, if you want the best, it's not very difficult. It's pretty obvious that you go with the 4090, and if they launch the 4090 Ti, then obviously that's a given. Your biggest kind of question is, do you go with AMD or Intel for the CPU choice? I'm not even going to touch that with barge pole in this video, but things get a lot more complicated in the mid-range. And yeah, I'm going to be very interested to see what the strategy is for these companies going forward. And somewhat out of left field, is that the phrase, out left field? I don't know. Either way, somewhat an interesting question is also going to be how the market will change when we see FSR 3. And I have to say that Intel are doing a really good job as well with the updates for ARC, for its drivers. There's been a couple of very interesting reports actually for major performance uplifts. Anywho, I think that's just about it for this particular video. It's been a lot shorter than normal because, again, I wasn't really planning to make this video. I was working on the other one, and I just wanted to kind of go over this because I just find it interesting. Also, by the way, I want to give courtesy credit to WCCF Tech because I actually spotted the Igor's Lab article via them. So I will, of course, leave links to all of this in the description of the video. If you've enjoyed the video, speaking of videos, and how many times can I say video? A lot, apparently. If you have enjoyed this, though, of course, leave a like and all of that stuff. Thanks very much, guys. Stay safe, have an amazing day, and bye for now.